Hey everyone, we'll give it one more minute before we get started. All right, hello and welcome to today's webinar on the North Carolina Tax Certification Program and how composters may benefit. My name is Christine Whitmire and I work for the state's recycling office as their organics recycling specialist, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, I would like to do a quick introduction to the host organizations that put this webinar together. And I'll also go over a couple of housekeeping reminders. This webinar is hosted in partnership by the North Carolina Composting Council and the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service, and it's in the Recycling and Materials Management section. And first, the North Carolina Composting Council is a nonprofit membership-based organization that is dedicated to the development, expansion, and promotion of composting and compost use in both the domestic and industry setting, and is the state affiliate of the U.S. Composting Council. There are many ways to get involved with this organization, including a variety of committees, a monthly Sustainable Spirits networking event, and the annual compost operation training course in Raleigh that will be held this September 11th through 15th. And there's actually a Sustainable Spirits tomorrow, Thursday, March 16th, at the Mindful Merchant in Java Jive in Cary from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. And then next, DEQ's Recycling and Materials Management section, or RAMS, is within the Non-Regulatory Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service, or DEACS. And RAMS helps promote a circular economy by providing technical assistance to recycling businesses and local governments, grant opportunities that expand recycling infrastructure, and a variety of outreach programs, including the Recycle Right campaign and Use the Food and See. And now for just a few housekeeping reminders. Everyone but the speaker will be muted. Please use the chat function for all questions and we will address them at the end. Also, the presentation is being recorded and you'll receive a link to it afterwards. Well, let's get started. I'll first introduce our speaker, Chris Hollinger. Chris is the Compliance Officer for the Division of Waste Management, Solid Waste Section, and oversees their tax certification program. The purpose of the Division of Waste Management is to protect public health and the environment by assuring that solid and hazardous waste and underground storage tanks are managed properly and that existing contamination is cleaned up. And within the Division of Waste Management, we have the solid waste section where Chris is out of. And the solid waste section regulates safe management of non-hazardous solid waste through guidance, technical assistance, regulations, permitting, environmental monitoring, compliance evaluation, and enforcement. So thank you again, Chris, for offering your time and expertise, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, not a problem. So good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you today to talk a little bit about the tax certification program for recycling and resource recovery from facilities and equipment administered by the Division of Waste Management, Solid Waste Section. As was stated, my name is Chris Hollinger. I am the compliance officer with the Solid Waste Section. And part of my duties include assisting in administering this program. My main roles are to review and process incoming applications and to act as a main point of contact for questions from companies that are interested in applying. So during this presentation today, I am going to provide you with an overview of this program, how it works, and the benefits it may be able to provide your business. So I want to start by giving a brief overview of how this presentation is structured and the main topics that I will be covering. I want to start by going back to the general statute and introducing the laws passed by the General Assembly that give the DEQ the authority to create and administer this program. Then I want to introduce our administrative code, or our rules, which dictate the specifics of how this program is operated. I'm going to follow this up with a bird's eye view of the whole program before I start diving into some of the nuances and nitty-gritty details, particularly around personal and real property and how the division considers them for tax certification purposes. Some of this can be a little confusing, so I have done my best to work in some examples to try and illustrate various ideas. I do want to say up front that these won't be compost-specific examples. I am primarily going to be using the recycling process that creates mulch as an example because it's very simple, straightforward, and allows for really good illustrations of some of the standards for qualification. Then I'm going to touch on some types of assets that are beyond the scope of the Division of Waste Management to assess. And then I am going to show you some examples of assets that composting facilities have applied for and got certified within the last 2 years. And I'm also going to explain a little bit about why they got certified. And then I'm going to, the last part of this presentation is going to move into discussing how to apply to this program, the types of information we need, and to give you some general tips in applying. I will also give you an overview of what to expect when you do submit an application, and then I will end the presentation with some FAQs, questions I get asked very frequently before we open it up for questions. So with that, we'll get started. Okay, so I'm sure everyone here knew to expect that if you attend a webinar by a state agency, you're going to get some things from the general statute thrown at you. So I figured let's just get this out of the way first. So the department derives its authority for administering this program from 2 items in the general statute. The first shown here is from GS 105.275.8b. And 105.275 is the part of the general statute that covers items that can be excluded from the tax base or can be given a special tax treatment. So here you can see that 8b reads that real or personal property that is used or if under construction is to be used exclusively for recycling or resource recovering of or from solid waste. If the Department of Environmental Quality furnishes a certificate to the tax supervisor of the county in which the property is situated, stating the Department of Environmental Quality has found that the described property has been or will be constructed or installed, complies or will comply with the rules of the Department of Environmental Quality, and has or will have as its primary purpose recycling or resource recovering of or from solid waste. If it meets that, then it can be designated a special class under Article 5, Section 2.2, and can be excluded from the property tax base. The second part of the general statute that we derive our authority from is located in GS 130A294A3. Which reads that the department is authorized and directed to engage in research, conduct investigations and surveys, make inspections, and establish a statewide solid waste management program. In establishing the program, the department shall have the authority to develop and adopt rules to establish standards for qualification as a recycling, reduction, or resource recovering facility, or as a recycling, reduction, or resource recovery equipment, for the purposes of special tax classifications or treatment, and to certify as qualifying those applicants which meet the established standards. The standards shall be developed to qualify only those facilities and equipment used in actual waste recycling, reduction, or resource recovering process, and shall exclude any incidental or supportive facilities and equipment. So in plain English, what this law is doing is giving the DEQ permission to write administrative code or rules to establish a process for issuing tax certificates as required in GS 105.275 from the previous slide. In case anyone is interested, just as an interesting tidbit, both these laws were passed in the early 1970s, so this program has been around for quite some time. So as required by 103A294A3, the DEQ created rules that govern the program. And these rules are found in 15A NCAC 13B 1500, and the first iteration of them was approved in 1976. Some of you might already be familiar with these rules. However, the rules recently went through a readoption process and some changes were made. So our new rules became effective on March 1st of 2021, and these rules are available for download on our website. I think the website is going to be link to the website is going to be put in the chat, so I would encourage everyone to take a look at that at some point. If you are interested in applying for the program, I would highly encourage you to read through the rules. The rules cover the definitions of terms in 1501. They cover the requirements for applying to the program in 1502, essentially laying out the information that applicants need to provide to the division. And then finally, they lay out the standards for real and personal property qualifying for tax certification in 1503. Again, just want to encourage everyone interested to download and read the rules. I am going to do my absolute best today to try and explain a lot of important points to you and capture some nuances. But there really is no substitute for actually sitting down and reading through the rules. Okay, so with the authority taken care of, I'm going to give a broad overview of the program. So here are the benefits that the program may be able to give your business. So this program allows businesses to apply for tax certification of leased or owned equipment, building space, and land space used exclusively for recycling or resource recovery of or from solid waste. You do not need to have a permit from the division in order to apply for this program. The way the law is written, any business that has equipment exclusively used for recycling can apply. And we actually get a number of applications from even businesses like grocery stores that will apply to us for their cardboard balers, as an example. In case anyone here is unfamiliar with the terms real and personal property, real property is land or items permanently affixed to the land, such as buildings. Personal property is anything not permanently affixed to the land, so things like vehicles or various pieces of equipment. Excuse me. So applicants will provide the division with a list of assets they believe qualify. Then the division inspects the assets to determine whether they comply with the rules found in 13B 1500. If they do, the division will provide a tax certificate listing the qualifying items. And this is an important point that I want to emphasize. Under this program, the certification is being granted to specific pieces of equipment and or specific areas, typically measured in square footage or acreage of your facility or land. The program is not providing a certification for your business as a whole or for your recycling process itself. So as I said, if the assets listed comply with the rules found in 13B 1500, the division will provide a tax certificate, which I have an example tax certificate shown here. And this will list the qualifying assets. The tax certificate will be sent from the division, actually from me, via email, both to the applicant and to the tax assessor's office for the county in which the equipment is located. I want to be very clear about where the tax benefits of this program lie. This program provides documentation to support a local tax benefit. It does not provide any direct relief of state or federal taxes. I routinely get phone calls from people asking if they can get a certificate before they purchase an asset so that they don't need to pay sales tax on it. And I have to say that I'm sorry, the program doesn't work this way. We have also had some businesses express interest in applying to the program only to learn they don't actually pay property taxes in North Carolina. I had a phone call last year with a very nice gentleman from a facility in Tennessee wondering if he could submit an application to our program, and I had to tell him that unfortunately North Carolina lost jurisdiction of Tennessee in 1789, and that he would need to move his facility to North Carolina if he wanted to partake in the program. All that to say, this program is not going to provide you with any direct tax benefit if you don't pay property taxes in a North Carolina county. Now, that's not to say your business is not eligible for other tax relief. Your business may very well be eligible for other state or federal tax reliefs. However, this program will only provide a direct benefit to local property taxes. And do please note that the DEQ is not responsible for determining the actual tax benefit or your tax savings. That is the jurisdiction of your county tax assessor. All right, I am now going to go through the standards of qualification for real and personal property, starting with personal property. As a reminder, personal property is all personal property that is not intangible and that is not permanently affixed to real property. That is a definition per the general statute. All right, so the standards for qualification are laid out in Rule 1503, and I would, again, highly encourage interested parties to read it. So to qualify, the equipment must be used exclusively for recycling and resource recovery, or transportation or storage for recycling or resource recovery. What this means is that the asset is used in a process that is transforming solid waste, which would otherwise end up in a landfill, into a new material that can be used in a future production process or can be marketed for sale as a good. It must also be necessary for recycling, or the asset must be necessary for recycling or resource recovery to occur. The phrase shall not be used at any time that you can see there in 1503 C3 really does mean that the asset must be used exclusively for recycling. If the asset has any non-recycling use, it is not going to qualify, even if it is sometimes or even most of the time used for recycling. For example, say you take in bales of plastic waste for recycling, as shown in the picture here, and this forklift does the unloading of trucks, bringing this stuff to the facility. If used for no other purpose except for unloading this plastic, then the forklift may qualify for tax exemption. However, if the forklift is also sometimes used for an activity unrelated to recycling, say on the weekends it gets moved over to a nearby warehouse and moves boxes of office paper around, then it would not qualify because it is not being used exclusively for recycling. Additionally, the personal property cannot be incidental or supporting equipment, and I will get into that in a minute here. It can also never handle a new material, production scrap, or solid waste that is heading to a landfill. And I'm going to spend the next few slides explaining what some of these terms mean in greater detail. So, as mentioned, incidental or supporting equipment is not going to qualify for tax certification, and incidental and supportive equipment is fully defined in Rule 1501. And these are going to be items that may support a recycling operation, but are not actually directly part of the recycling process itself. So on this slide, I have some examples of what constitutes incidental and supportive equipment. These include things like office furniture, safety equipment, any equipment used for maintenance purposes, and any spare parts, and anything needed for security or for employee comfort. As I also mentioned, the personal property cannot be used at any time to handle a new material, a solid waste heading for disposal, or for production scrap. Now, the concepts of production scrap and new material can be a little bit confusing to some, so I am going to be providing some examples to illustrate these ideas. We can get into what they mean. I'm going to assume that everyone probably has a good idea of what solid waste intended for disposal means, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that at this point. So production scrap is defined as excess or unusable material created during a production process that is then returned to be used in that same production process. So assets that qualify, assets that handle production scrap do not qualify for tax certification. And the rules actually provide an example of production scrap in 1501, and I've done my best to illustrate that example here. So in this example, a facility is making plastic sheets from pellets and then trimming the plastic sheets to make a product. The excess plastic from the trimmings is being collected, reground, and reintroduced back at the beginning of the process with the raw material. This facility may believe that they can get a tax certificate on equipment that is being used to regrind the excess plastic. However, it would actually not qualify under Rule 1503C7. However, production scrap does not apply to a process that is recovering excess materials and returning them to be reused in a recycling process. So in this example, a facility is receiving wood waste and grinding it into mulch. Say the facility then screens this mulch to pull out larger items that get through and sends them for regrind. In this scenario, the pieces sent for regrind would not be considered production scrap. And really the key difference between these two scenarios is that in the process depicted on this slide, a solid waste, wood waste, is actually entering this system, and the regrind is being combined with that solid waste, which was not the case in the first example where the regrind was being combined with a new material. And speaking of new material, once a new material has been created, the recycling process is considered to be over, even if your entire manufacturing process is not over. So any asset used to handle the new material would not qualify under the rules. Again, I have an example here to illustrate how the division thinks about new material. So say you have a facility that receives wood waste and grinds it into mulch. The facility then adds color to the mulch before packaging and transporting those mulch packages to customers. In this scenario, equipment used to grind the wood waste into mulch may qualify. However, once the mulch is created, it meets the definition of a new material in 1501(5). The rest of the process is therefore no longer considered to be recycling, and equipment used in coloring the mulch, packing the mulch, packaging the mulch, and transporting the mulch would not qualify. So I want to end the discussion on personal property with an example to try and tie several of these concepts together. Again, I am using the same example facility as before, but say this mulching facility has 3 trucks that they want to get certified. Truck A is only used to bring in wood waste to the facility. Truck B is used only for mulch deliveries, and truck C is mainly used to haul wood waste to the facility, but during really busy times, like during the spring when lots of people are gardening, truck C assists truck B in hauling mulch to customers. So in this example, truck A would likely qualify. It is necessary for recycling to occur. Recycling can occur without wood waste being brought to the facility, and it is used exclusively for transportation of that waste to the facility as required by rule. Truck B is handling a new material, therefore it would not qualify. And truck C would also not qualify because it is not used exclusively for recycling or resource recovery. And really the important point here is the types of material that these assets are handling. I mean, I'm using trucks for this example, but I could very well be using containers for this example, and it would be the same situation. So I'm now going to go through the standards of qualification for real property. As a reminder, per the general statute, we are now talking about the land and the assets that are affixed to the land. If this slide looks familiar, it's because the requirements are pretty much the same for real property as those for personal property. The real property, again, needs to be used exclusively for resource recovery and recycling, and the activities conducted on or within the real property need to be necessary for recycling to occur. And again, like the personal property, it can't have uses that would be considered incidental or supporting, and it can't have uses that involve handling new material, production scrap, or solid waste intended for disposal. Now, I'm not going to go through the concepts of new material and production scrap again, but I thought it may be useful to see examples of the kinds of real property that would be considered to be incidental or supporting. Again, these are highlighted in Rule 1501. Again, you are looking at uses that may support the recycling operation, such as office space or parking for your employees, but they are not actually involved in the recycling itself, so they would not be able to qualify. You may be a little bit confused as far as real property goes. You may think, hang on, we have buildings that have multiple uses on our property. How would any building get qualified? We have recycling areas in the building with an office as part of it. Well, applying for real property is not an all or nothing situation. You can actually apply for certain areas of a building. So if you have a 10,000 square foot building, but believe only 2,000 square feet would qualify, you can apply for that specific 2,000 square feet and actually get certified for just portions of buildings. And it is actually the same with land. I'm sure most of you have properties that have a variety of different uses across it. Your entire tax parcel does not need to be used exclusively for recycling. You can apply for just specific areas on your tax parcel that are used exclusively for recycling. I do want to make a quick note on how we think about land underneath buildings. So if you have areas of a building that qualify, the land underneath the building will also qualify, so long as the building is only one story. In the event that you have a multi-story building, the use on each floor has to be recycling for the land underneath the building to qualify. This is something that can trip a number of quite a lot of people up. But essentially, in order to get your land qualified, every use above the land needs to be exclusively recycling. So I want to talk briefly about some types of assets that the division is barred by rule from inspecting and certifying. So the division will not be able to assess any real or personal property that is required by an air permit or water permit, or used primarily for air or water pollution abatement. This might be applicable to some of you if you are a type 3 or type 4 compost facility, if you have odor controls, stormwater controls, or assets used to eliminate particulates in air. Those are likely things that the Division of Waste Management is not going to be able to look at. And this is not to say you would not be able to get items such as these certified. Both the Division of Air Quality and the Division of Water Resources have tax certification programs. And if you follow the link to our website, there is a link from our tax certification website to both the Division of Air Quality tax page and Division of Water Resources tax page. So you may need to apply to their programs to get assets used in water pollution abatement or air pollution abatement certified. The Division of Waste Management also does not have the authority to make determinations about assets used exclusively for handling animal waste. And this is because the general statute specifically states that animal waste does not fall under the definition of a solid waste. However, like before, this does not mean you can't get equipment that handles animal waste certified, but the authority to actually assess it lies with the Division of Water Resources. So you would have to contact them and discuss your assets with them. So in the event that you have assets that are used to handle a mixture of animal waste and solid waste, I would ask that you contact me to discuss it, as we will likely need to collect some more information before we can figure out whose program an application should go through. So as promised, I want to give you some examples of some items that composting facilities applied for and got certified within the last 2 years. We've actually only had a couple applications from composting facilities in the last couple years. So looking at those, some assets certified include a Caterpillar water truck that was used for irrigating windrows, multiple loaders that were used for either mixing materials and turning windrows or moving pre-compost materials around. We did certify an air recirculation system that was moving air under composting materials. And we did certify a computer system that was being used exclusively to monitor composting materials. And then I do want to point out that this says exclusive use. So these items that were certified were used solely for the purposes listed here, and that is really why they were able to be certified. And this is not an all-inclusive or exhaustive list of everything that has been certified. Just some examples I pulled off of tag certificates. Okay, so now that we've gone through discussing some of our standards for qualification, I want to talk to you about how you apply for the program. And first, I want to go through some general recommendations. So before you apply to the programs, ideally, you review rules first. Just thought I'd throw that in there in case I haven't mentioned that you should review the rules before. Call me, call the compliance officer with questions. This is very encouraged if it's your first application. I mean, helping people through the application process is really the main part of my job with this program. So please do pick up the phone and give me a call, and I'll give you my contact information a little bit later here. Ensure that you are in compliance with environmental law, which essentially means no unresolved notices of violation from DEQ. We're not going to be able to give you a tax cert if you have open NOVs. So just make sure that you're in good standing. Once an application is submitted, please respond to any clarifying questions or requests for more information from me, from a compliance officer within a timely manner. The rules do give me the authority to return your application as incomplete if I request something and I don't hear from you within 15 days. Now, in practice, I'm going to make every effort to keep reaching out to you and get information before I return something. But there does come a point where if I'm not getting the information I need, I will have to send the application back. I know it sounds obvious, but if you want to apply, you need to fill out and submit an application. This happens surprisingly frequently. Just sending me an email telling me to come out and look at your facility will not suffice. And this email is based on multiple real-life examples. The application documents and information are on our website, and we currently have two options for submittal for an application. You can download the application as a PDF, fill it out, and email it to me, or you can use our new online submittal system, which uses Laserfish forms. I would recommend you use the online system, as the PDF form is likely to be retired in the near future, and by the near future, I mean probably this year. So it is probably a good idea to get familiar with the online submittal, which in my opinion is much easier anyway, when you look at this. So although the PDF form is going to be retired, I am going to be using some screenshots of it in the next few slides to illustrate the information that we want, as it just kind of transcribes into the presentation a little bit better than the online form does. If you use the online system, it will look a little bit different, but the information we are requesting is going to be exactly the same. So the application documents are based on the rules found in 1502, which detail the information you need to provide to the division. We do not have any deadlines for these applications. We do accept them at any time of year. There is no limit to how many you can send us in a year. You can, many companies send us multiple applications in a year. Currently, there is no fee to apply to this program. I can't promise there will always be no fee, but as of right now, as of when I'm giving this presentation, there is no fee for applying to the program. The application does have to be complete before I will process it. And this is one of the advantages of the online system, is that it will actually not let you submit the application until you have filled out all parts of it. So again, highly recommend you use the online system, as it helps in case people miss things accidentally on the PDF form sometimes. So when filling out the form, be sure to read it carefully and provide all the required information. Many applicants do seem to miss section D, which asks for either a flow chart or a narrative bullet points describing your recycling process. Please do include this, as the application won't be processed without it. A number of people do also get tripped up by the term process schematic, and you would be surprised at the number of people that send me land surveys and blueprints. That is not what I'm after. So please, at least for equipment, don't send me that. You will need to provide a list for the equipment you want considered for certification. This is on page 2 of the PDF form, or if you use the online system, there will be an Excel sheet that you can download and fill out. Don't list building space or land space here. Those are listed later. And please be sure to fill out the line for each piece of equipment in its entirety. A key point here is that each item should have a unique asset number, and there should be an explanation as to how it is used in the recycling process. And please try to be specific here. Don't just write something like used for recycling. I've gotten applications before which will have 90, 100 pieces of equipment listed, and next to every single piece of equipment, the applicant will just write used for recycling, and that's really not going to be sufficient for our purposes. So if you are applying for building space or land space, at that point you must provide a drawing or a map showing what areas you are applying for. A lot of applications miss this, and again, we can't process an application without it. Again, great advantage of the online system is that if you indicate you're applying for land or facility space, the system will not let you submit the application until you add a map as the attachment. And I do want to say that we don't need necessarily professional surveys or anything like that. You can provide us with Google Earth, annotated Google Earth aerials showing the outline of the places you're applying for. Some people send us hand-drawn maps of their buildings showing us the approximate areas they're applying for, and that is sufficient for our purposes. Finally, the application needs to be signed, certifying that all the information is correct, that there are no current or ongoing compliance issues. This is something that, again, a lot of people miss. They don't sign in all the places that they need to sign, and I will not be able to move the application through unless everything is signed. So if you have leased assets that are used for recycling, or if you lease land or facility space, you can still apply for those. However, please note that we cannot process an application with both leased and owned equipment on the same application. So leased assets can be grouped together on their own same application, so long as the lessor, lessee, and expiration date are the same across your leased equipment. If this is not the case, then we need separate applications for various pieces of leased equipment. And if applying for leased equipment, we do also need to see a copy of your lease agreement, a copy of your executed lease agreement. We will not be able to process an application for leased equipment if the lease does not have a definitive expiration date. And the reason for this is that leased tax certificates for owned property do not expire. They are good pretty much as long as you have the equipment and the use doesn't change. But for a tax certificate for leased property, that tax certificate will expire, and it will have an expiration date that matches the expiration date of your lease. So once the application has been submitted to the division and has been determined to be complete, it will enter our review process, and I have depicted that here. A common question I get is how long will this review process take? Our internal goal is to try and have reviews completed and a determination made within 90 days of our receipt of the complete application. However, we don't have any statutorily imposed deadlines. So depending on the complexity of the site, depending on what else is going on at the time, it could be longer. You know, I will say the branch within solid waste section that works on this program, the field operations branch, is also the group that does a lot of hurricane response. So, you know, if you're applying for this program when there's a hurricane hitting the state, you can bet it's probably gonna take a little while for something to someone to come out. Also, an important point is we will not backdate tax certs. The rules state that the tax certs are good on the date that they are signed, and that there is no mechanism in place for us to backdate them. So once the application has been submitted and processed, a field inspector will contact you and schedule a time to come inspect the assets listed. There are some things you can do ahead of time to make the inspection process as easy as possible for both yourself and the inspector. First of all, ensure that the equipment is labeled with the asset number that was provided in the form. I will say that you are allowed, per our rules, to create your own asset numbers if you have equipment that doesn't have a serial number. We have many applicants that do create their own asset numbers. Ensure that the assets are available to be inspected. I have certainly gone on some site inspections. Went on one a couple years ago where the applicant was applying for 97 pieces of equipment, and when myself and the field inspector got out there, they could only find 7 of the things that they were applying for on their yard. Yeah, that made things difficult. So ensure the assets are available to be inspected. There are exceptions to this baked into the rules for vehicles and containers. We recognize that those are commonly in use off-site, and Rule D 1502 D6G allows us to verify ownership of vehicles and containers with invoices or registrations. And so finally, be prepared or have a knowledgeable person present who will be able to answer questions about your operation and about the uses of the equipment listed. I do want to discuss things that we will not review or verify. Remember that the division is only looking at whether the items listed in the application are used exclusively for recycling and resource recovery, and that they comply with the rules found in 1503. The division does not certify or verify asset costs, and the division has nothing to do with determining changes in tax amount, tax savings, or anything to do with taxes. The division also does not determine which years the exemptions should apply to. All of that is going to be the domain of the county tax assessor. The division also is not going to be auditing your facility. Our inspector is only going to be looking at and considering the items that are actually listed in the application you submit to us for certification. So once the application has gone through our review process, one of three decisions will be made. If some or all of the assets listed qualify, you will receive a tax certificate listing that property. If none of it qualify, then you will receive a certified letter stating the reason that the division was unable to grant a tax certificate. Also, if you apply to us for items outside of our scope, such as equipment required by an air or water permit, you will receive a letter stating that a determination could not be made. And that will also direct you to the appropriate place if we believe that air or water may be the more appropriate venue. This will also be the result if you apply for equipment that we are not able to verify because it is not present, or you do not have it at the time of the site inspection. If you do receive a tax certificate, you have some additional responsibilities. So it is your responsibility to maintain records of your tax certificates. Don't be John Smith here. Again, I get emails like this very, very frequently. I will, of course, do my absolute best to try and help you track down certificates if you can't find them, but I will never be able to guarantee that I can find them. Also, most counties have paperwork requirements if you are claiming a tax exemption like this, and it is your job to know what those are and to complete them. Unlike the DEQ, counties may have a deadline for paperwork submittals, and you're going to need to verify that with them. I have seen multiple instances of businesses that did receive a tax certificate from us and then ignored the county requirements because they figured that the tax certificate itself supersedes any county required documents and they didn't need to deal with the county. Then a little while later, I get a phone call and they're upset because the county didn't give them their exemption and they want me to help them out. And I have to say, look, I'm sorry that there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to help you in this situation. You need to provide all necessary documentation as required by your county tax assessor. All right, so I want to end this presentation with some commonly asked questions. First of all, tax certificates are not transferable. If you purchase a company that already has one or purchase a piece of equipment from a company that is listed on a tax certificate under them, doesn't transfer, you will need to reapply. As I mentioned before, tax certificate for owned equipment does not expire unless there is a change in ownership or a change in use, or there are compliance issues. The division does have the authority to revoke a tax certificate if a facility starts having compliance issues. Finally, as I've stated before, the division will not know the answer to any questions related to how this is going to impact your tax bill. All questions related to taxes should be directed to the county tax assessor. So yeah, that is it for me. I hope this has been informative. I know I've thrown an awful lot of information at you. If you want to discuss this program further, I would encourage you to contact me. I think we have some time for questions. Yeah, if you would like to give me a call, shoot me an email to go over anything I've covered that may have been a little bit unclear. I would love to hear from y'all. So thank you. Appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was really informative and it helped explain a lot. So thank you again. And we did have one question come through.
Hmm.
So I'll just start off with that. And then everyone else, feel free to use the chat or the question box. But the first question is, if a piece of equipment that has been previously approved and then replaced, does a new application need to be filed for the replacement unit, even if it is used for the exact same purpose?
Yes, yes, it does. Yeah, that's a great question, and yeah, I do get that question sometimes. But yes, if you're getting a new piece of equipment in, even if it's being used for an activity where the division previously determined that it qualified, yeah, you'll need to submit a new application to us and get that certified.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? We have about 10 minutes. All right. Well, as always, here's Chris's contact information. Oh, wait, we have one come in. Um, is there a minimum size limit for a facility? Can a demonstration permit be used?
A what permit?
I think demonstration, which is before the exempted permit. But I think the first question
No,
is there a minimum size limit for a facility?
no, no. So the key parts of this program are assets that need to be used exclusively for recycling and resource recovery. So I have seen, um, again, I guess I'll bring up the grocery store example again. So like even just this past week, I sent out a tax cert for a grocery store for a baler and 50 square feet of facility space for the baler. So no, there is no size limits um, uh, for applying.
Great. And I also did answer that question about the demonstration permit can be used. So you do
Um,
not have to have a
you
permit to apply, correct?
no, that's not a there's no requirement that you have a permit from DEQ to apply to this program. And we're actually a little bit unique among southeastern states with similar programs in this. A lot of other states, you do actually need to be in the commercial business of recycling in order to apply. But at least at this point in time, our program does not have that requirement.
Great. Well, I am getting, a couple comments in, like, thank you so much. It's very helpful.
Oh,
And we'll
good.
just
I'm
give it,
glad.
yeah, we'll give it one more minute to see if anybody has any remaining questions.
Sure. And yeah, um, again, if it takes a little while for you to think of a question, pick up the phone and give me a call. Um, yeah, much like Dwight Schrute, I don't take vacations, I don't get sick, and I don't observe any major holidays. So just give me a call at any time.
Well, I can probably say on behalf of, oh, we had another question come in. Will the presentation be made available? Yes, I will send out the recording after I get the link to it. So you will receive that in an email tomorrow. Um, and yeah, just saying everyone's just having some great comments that they enjoyed it and it was helpful.
I'm good.
Yeah, but the presentation will be made available in a link tomorrow. Yeah, and I will say, Chris, thank you again for just saying, call me, I'm available. Like, I think that's just really great that you're
I
willing to, pick up the phone anytime.
Yep. I mean, it's yeah, I enjoy, like I said, it's one of the main parts of my job is helping people through the application process, and I enjoy doing it. So I'd be happy to speak with anyone.
Great. Well, on that note, I will end this. I don't see any other questions, and I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon and look forward to seeing y'all again at the next webinar. You will receive a poll to rate this and then offer any suggestions on what could we put on next. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.